Welcome to a new series where we take tech on the road, explore a travel destination, and test the gear out in real life. This is Field Tested. In this episode of Field Tested, we're heading to Japan, Spain, and Portugal to field test the Fuji X-T3. This is a new monster APS-C camera from the company that's sporting a 26.1 megapixel sensor, dual UHS card slots, and amazing data throughput. This will do 30 frames per second with a 1.2 extra crop applied with JPEG, and the video specs are absolutely class leading at DCI 4K at 60 frames a second. It's also doing log and internal 400 megabit recording. I'm taking along a whole big kit of lenses, including the incredible new 200mm f2. Let's check it out. Tokyo is one of my favorite cities. I actually came to Japan to finalize some details for my 2019 tour, but it turned out I was going to be there on Halloween, so I went to Shibuya, where all of the young people go out to show off their costumes, be seen, and have a party to test out the X-T3 and its low light capabilities. Japan's a funny country. Often on the surface it feels so buttoned down and restricted and homogeneous, but when there are opportunities for self-expression, it totally seems to explode, like people are holding it back all year for the opportunity to dress up and get a little crazy. So I've just stepped a little bit away from the madness to talk about the low light autofocus on this guy. It's so funny when there's been so much hype about the Canon and Nikon mirrorless coming out and them getting all this criticism for all the things they're omitting. But I have to say, the low light autofocus on this, and the Fujis are known for really good autofocus, I'm not impressed at all. If I were comparing this to any reasonable DSLR, I would expect much better performance. And yes, it has face and eye detection, but still it's not super dark situations, but dark, f4, ISO 6400, it's really struggling, and most of the time I would say missing the eye autofocus, and I've missed so many shots because I couldn't pull focus in time. Next, I headed up to Nagano to visit the onsen monkeys, and I'm finalizing some last little details like picking really great traditional inns for my upcoming tour. I thought this would be a great opportunity to test out the 200mm f2 with the snow monkeys in the onsen. Now, if you don't know about ryokans, it's a really traditional style of hotel essentially, or inn in Japan, with half board. So it comes with a fantastic breakfast and dinner included in the board rate, and it's usually a very fancy kaiseki or chef's choice seasonal menu. Now, this is a touristy area, but the monkeys are so great to shoot, and the 200 f2 with its paired teleconverter were just phenomenal. I have to say, the concerns I had about autofocus shooting Halloween were totally allayed here. With a fast lens in good sunlight, this was nailing it and really performing well. And to my surprise, the face detect actually picked up the monkeys a few times, but it wasn't completely accurate. It even got one of their butts one time. I did a full standalone video on the 200mm f2 that you can click through to above. All of the images you're seeing here were edited in Capture One Pro, who are sponsoring this series. If you want to check it out, go to the link on screen, use the code MATTG, and you can get a special deal on your purchase. Now the lens is just as big as, say, the Nikon equivalent, even though it's for APS-C, but it is significantly lighter, and I found the optical quality is right up there, and coming paired with the TC, I think it's actually pretty good value despite the $6,000 price tag. If you're considering a primo lens like this, consider renting it from Lens Pro to Go. I get all my rentals from them, and you can get 15% off with the code GEAROUT15. Then you can try it, see if it works for you before you buy. After Japan, I flew directly to Barcelona for a family vacation. But of course, I continued the review as I had the X-T3 with me. Now, most of the footage you're seeing here was actually filmed with the X-T3, so you can actually judge the video quality from what you're seeing right in front of you. Barcelona is such a beautiful city, and you can see the touch of Gaudi not only in the many buildings he designed through the city, but in the general architecture from the last 100 years. We were lucky to score front row seats at a flamenco concert, which I thought was a great opportunity to test out the 30 frames per second still shooting, and in this situation the 1.25 extra crop really isn't a problem. So as the woman and man did their fancy footwork and tapped away, I got some of these close-up shots and then some wider shots with a slightly slower shutter speed, trying to include some blur whilst getting off a load of frames, because these kind of shots, like it or not, are a little bit hit and miss. Now, it wouldn't be a travel video for me without some amazing food, and we had the opportunity to eat at Enigma, the new Barcelona restaurant from Albert Adria of El Bulli fame, and my goodness, it was something else. There was so many shocks to the system, like the city of Barcelona itself. There's more than meets the eye. I'll actually be putting that one up on my World's Best Seafood channel, so make sure you're following that if you're not already. Rounding out our time in Barcelona, we were treated to a gorgeous sunset. I shot this using the built-in intervalometer of the X-T3 over about a 40-minute period. Next stop was Lisbon in Portugal. We had a couple of days in Lisbon and a couple of days in Sintra each. Absolutely stunning places and a great opportunity with all of the castles to test out the wider lenses that I had brought along. If you do get to Portugal, Sintra is such a beautiful area. It's not too far outside Lisbon, about an hour on the train, and it's just overrun with beautiful structures, romanticist architecture, historic estates and villas, castles, palaces. It's just overwhelming and so pretty, and really easy to get around once you get there. Hot tip though, if you want the best local food, get out of the tourist area. It's only €5 in a taxi to get to the next town, and you'll find some fantastic regional local food. Okay folks, just jumping into Capture One Pro here to take a quick little look at two shots. First up, I wanted to show you this one of the woman from Halloween. This was shot at ISO 6400. Now, this is an APS-C camera. They're not as well known for being great at low light, but let's just take a look at this. If we go into, well, first of all, it's underexposed. So I'm going to push it by a stop. Now going in, it's really not looking fantastic, is it? If I was shooting nighttime events in low light where I needed 6400 or 12800, I wouldn't be happy with that. Taking a look at the luminance noise reduction here, as is the way, it does it, but it does it by smoothing out details. So you're going to lose a lot of details. So by the time we bring that up to where I'm happy exposure-wise, on the wide shot it looks okay, but 1:1, or if you were trying to print it, not looking great. Now, something I love in this software, and I've demonstrated it before, this was down the bottom of the well. You can see super contrasty situation. The only light source was coming from the top of the well, so that's totally blown out, whereas down the bottom, we're at almost blacks, or in the corners, full blacks. Now this Capture One Pro has a really smart high dynamic range, which isn't about giving you that eye-piercing, crazy contrast. It's about recovering highlights and shadows. So highlight, if we bring that up, you see it's bringing back details in the highlights. And then shadows, it actually does such a good job, it's almost too much for me. The only reason we're not getting it in the far corners is because they were caves behind there. So actually I wouldn't take that all the way up, probably to like there, and it's done such a good job to keep the natural feel that the light should be falling off quite strongly because of the shape of the structure. I'll actually apply a slight vignette back to the bottom corners, and there we go. That's a pretty nice result considering we started out back here. Don't you think? If you visit Lisbon, you'll no doubt see high on the hill the Lisbon Castle, or São Jorge Castle. We went up there, took a look around, it was beautiful, and there's a bunch of wild peacocks and peahens, and I'd actually never seen them fly. So I did stake them out to get a little bit of video and some stills at the high frame rate to try and get them with their massive wings fully open. At this time of year, the sun is low in the sky, the crisp blue skies make for really hard light and shadow, which is great for street photography. I was always on the lookout for these high contrast scenes and then setting up my shot and waiting for someone to walk through, like this gentleman. One of my favorite sites in Sintra is the Quinta del Regalia. I'm sorry, my pronunciation is terrible. A beautiful old homestead, and I spotted this little waterfall. I thought it's a good opportunity to test out the stabilization of the 18-55. Being such a small and light kit, it's actually nice and easy to stabilize. You don't get tired throughout the day, and these shots were taken at a 20th, a 10th, and even a quarter of a second. Another time lapse, but here you really couldn't see much. It was just perfect weather, so the sky didn't really change, just the light balance came up, but I was surprised to get some flickering through this series with the X-T3. It's time to get back to grey and dreary New York to wrap up the review. Hey folks, welcome back to New York City. Time to wrap up what has been a bit of a different field tested from the other ones. I don't think I've done any others across 3 whole different countries. Now, I have to say, I really enjoyed shooting with this, and I've surprisingly found myself shooting with the 18-55 kit lens a lot. That 24-70 equivalent focal length really worked well. And no, it's not a constant f2.8, you're not getting a crazy shallow depth of field, but I found it a really great combo, and it makes it nice and compact. And I have to say though, even with this small light lens, I would seriously recommend getting the optional hand grip. I found it so much more comfortable, especially with the bigger lenses, but even with these smaller ones for daily shooting, I find this grip too small for my hands as is. But in terms of features, the higher frames per second, the crazy video specs this has, I was really impressed with it, and I love the way that the screen articulates as well. Overall, I really like the dials on it as well. These are my favorite style, where it's one click to unlock, one click to relock, so you're not accidentally bumping them. You don't have to hold it down as well. The dual card slots, it's really got so much going for it. The only thing would be if it had on-sensor stabilization, and then it would be just about the ultimate APS-C camera out there. Now, I obviously absolutely love the 200 f2. Again, if you haven't seen it, do jump out and check out the full video I did on that one. I could see myself getting the 18 to 55 and the 23 as my primary, casual traveling kit. It is nice and light and compact, and the image quality is just great. Did get a fair bit of use with the wide angle 10 to 24 in the museums and stuff. And whilst the 50 to 140 was a little bit overshadowed because I mainly used it at the Monkeys and I was also using the 200 f2 there, I did find it performs really well, albeit not as fast to focus as the 200 f2. Overall, a really well-rounded kit, and I have to say I was surprised that it wasn't the Sony a7S Mark III that brought 4K 60p log, all that good stuff, 400 megabit bit rate, all internal. It was this guy. So Fuji have now put themselves in a corner with what we're going to expect from something like an XH1 replacement, which would take the top spot off this. It's put the bar so high. Big shout out and thank you to Lens Pro to Go. I get all of my rental gear from them in North America. Use their code GEAROUT15 and get 15% off your rentals. And to Capture One Pro, they partnered up with Fujifilm. Now all of their cameras are supported. You can get a discounted pack specially for Fuji cameras if you're using the systems already. Use the code MATTG and you can get 10% off your purchase with them. So please do support both the sponsors. They make this series possible. It's actually a whole lot of work behind the scenes to make these videos for you. Please let me know what you'd like to see in a future field tested video, and I'll see you soon.